The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Chapter 1. Marseille. The Arrival. On the 24th of February, 1815, the lookout at Notre-Dame de la Garde signalled the three-master, the Pharaon from Smyrna, Trieste, and Naples. As usual, a pilot put off immediately, and rounding the Château d'If, got on board the vessel between Cap Morgian and Rion Island. Immediately, and according to custom, the ramparts of Fort Saint-Jean were covered with spectators. It's always an event at Marseille for a ship to come into port, especially when this ship, like the Pharaon, has been built, rigged, and laden at the old Fosse docks, and belongs to an owner of the city. The ship drew on and had safely passed the strait, which some volcanic shock has made between the Calassaregne and Jarreau Islands, had doubled Pomègue, and approached the harbour under topsails, jib, and spanker, but so slowly and sedately that the idlers, with that instinct which is the forerunner of evil, asked one another what misfortune could have happened on board. However, those experienced in navigation saw plainly that if any accident had occurred, it was not to the vessel herself, for she bore down with all the evidence of being skilfully handled, the anchor a cockbill, the jib-boom guys already eased off, and standing by the side of the pilot, who was steering the Pharaon towards the narrow entrance of the inner port, was a young man who, with activity and vigilant eye, watched every motion of the ship, and repeated each direction of the pilot. The vague disquietude which prevailed among the spectators had so much affected one of the crowd that he did not wait the arrival of the vessel in harbour, but jumping into a small skiff, desired to be pulled alongside the Pharaon, which he reached as she rounded into La Réserve basin. When the young man on board saw this person approach, he left his station by the pilot, and, hat in hand, leaned over the ship's bulwarks. He was a fine, tall, slim young fellow of 18 or 20, with black eyes and hair as dark as a raven's wing, and his whole appearance bespoke that calmness and resolution peculiar to men accustomed from their cradle to contend with danger. "Ah, is it you, Dante?" cried the man in the skiff. "What's the matter? And why have you such an air of sadness aboard?" "A great misfortune, Monsieur Morel," replied the young man. "A great misfortune, for me especially. Off Civita Vecchia, we lost our brave Captain Leclerc." "And the cargo?" inquired the owner eagerly. "Is all safe, Monsieur Morel, and I think you will be satisfied on that head. But poor Captain Leclerc—" "What happened to him?" asked the owner with an air of considerable resignation. "What happened to the worthy captain?" "He died." "Fell into the sea?" "No, sir, he died of brain fever in dreadful agony." Then turning to the crew, he said, "Bear a hand there, to take in sail." All hands obeyed, and at once the 8 or 10 seamen who composed the crew sprang to their respective stations at the spanker brails and outhaul, topsail sheets and halyards, the jib downhaul and topsail clewlines and buntlines. The young sailor gave a look to see that his orders were promptly and accurately obeyed, and then turned again to the owner. "And how did this misfortune occur?" inquired the latter, resuming the interrupted conversation. "Alas, sir, in the most unexpected manner. After a long talk with the harbour master, Captain Leclerc left Naples greatly disturbed in mind. In 24 hours he was attacked by a fever and died 3 days afterwards. We performed the usual burial service, and he is at his rest, sewn up in his hammock with a 36-pound shot at his head and his heels, off El Giglio Island. We bring to his widow his sword and cross of honour. It was worthwhile, truly," added the young man with a melancholy smile, "to make war against the English for 10 years, and to die in his bed at last, like everybody else." "Why, you see, Edmond," replied the owner, who appeared more comforted at every moment, "we are all mortal, and the old must make way for the young. If not, why, there would be no promotion. And since you assure me that the cargo is all safe and sound, Miss Morel, take my word for it. and I advise you not to take the 25,000 francs for the profits of the voyage." Then, as they were just passing the round tower, the young man shouted, "Stand by there to lower the topsails and jib. Brail up the spanker." The order was executed as promptly as it would have been on a man of war. "Let go and clew up." At this last command, all the sails were lowered, and the vessel moved almost imperceptibly onwards. "Now, if you will come on board, Monsieur Morel," said Dantès, observing the owner's impatience, "here is your supercargo, Monsieur Danglars, coming out of his cabin, who will furnish you with every particular. As for me, I must look after the anchoring and dress the ship in mourning." The owner did not wait for a second invitation. He seized a rope which Dantès flung to him, and with an activity that would have done credit to a sailor, climbed up the side of the ship, while the young man, going to his task, left the conversation to Danglars, who now came towards the owner. He was a man of 25 or 26 years of age, of unprepossessing countenance, obsequious to his superiors, insolent to his subordinates, and this in addition to his position as responsible agent on board, which is always obnoxious to the sailors, made him as much disliked by the crew as Edmond Dantès was beloved by them. "Well, Monsieur Morel," said Danglars, "you have heard of the misfortune that has befallen us?" "Yes, yes, poor Captain Leclerc. He was a brave and honest man." "And a first-rate seaman, one who had seen long and honourable service, as became a man charged with the interests of a house so important as that of Morel and Son," replied Danglars. "But," replied the owner, glancing after Dantès, who was watching the anchoring of his vessel, "it seems to me that a sailor needs not be so old as you say, Danglars, to understand his business. For our friend Edmond seems to understand it thoroughly, and not to require instruction from anyone." "Yes," said Danglars, darting at Edmond a look gleaming with hate. "Yes, he is young, and youth is invariably self-confident. Scarcely was the captain's breath out of his body when he assumed the command without consulting anyone, and he caused us to lose a day and a half at the island of Elba, instead of making for Marseille direct." "As to taking command of the vessel," replied Morel, "that was his duty as captain's mate. As to losing a day and a half off the island of Elba, he was wrong unless the vessel needed repairs." "The vessel was in as good condition as I am, and as I hope you are, Monsieur Morel, and this day and a half was lost from pure whim, for the pleasure of going ashore, and nothing else." "Dantès," said the ship-owner, turning towards the young man, "come this way." "In a moment, sir," answered Dantès, "and I'm with you." Then calling to the crew, he said, "Let go." The anchor was instantly dropped, and the chain ran rattling through the porthole. Dantès continued at his post in spite of the presence of the pilot, until this manoeuvre was completed, and then he added, "Half-mast the colours, and square the yards." "You see," said Danglars, "he fancies himself captain already, upon my word." "And so in fact he is," said the owner. "Except your signature and your partner's, Monsieur Morel." "And why should he not have this?" asked the owner. "He is young, it is true, but he seems to me a thorough seaman, and of full experience." A cloud passed over Danglars' brow. "Your pardon, Monsieur Morel," said Dantès, approaching. "The vessel now rides at anchor, and I am at your service. You hailed me, I think." Danglars retreated a step or two. "I wish to inquire why you stopped at the island of Elba." "I do not know, sir. It was to fulfill the last instructions of Captain Leclerc, who, when dying, gave me a packet for Marshal Bertrand." "Then did you see him, Edmond?" "Who?" "The Marshal." "Yes, Morel looked around him, and then drawing Dante on one side, he said suddenly, "And how is the Emperor?" "Very well, as far as I could judge from the sight of him." "You saw the Emperor, then?" "He entered the Marshal's apartment while I was there." "And you spoke to him?" "Why, it was he who spoke to me, sir," said Dante with a smile. "And what did he say to you?" "Asked me questions about the vessel, the time she left Marseille, the course she had taken, and what was her cargo. I believe if she had not been laden, and I had been her master, he would have brought her. But I told him I was only mate, and that she belonged to the firm of Morel and Son." "Ah, yes," he said, "I know them. The Morels have been shipowners from father to son. And there was a Morel who served in the same regiment with me when I was in garrison at Valence." "Pardieu, and that is true!" cried the owner, greatly delighted. "And that was Policar Morel, my uncle, who was afterwards a captain. Dante, you must tell my uncle that the Emperor remembered him, and you will see it will bring tears into the old soldier's eyes. Come, come," continued he, patting Edmond's shoulder kindly. "You did very right, Dante, to follow Captain Leclerc's instructions and touch at Elba. Although, if it were known that you had conveyed a packet to the Marshal, and had conversed with the Emperor, it might bring you into trouble." "How could that bring me into trouble, sir?" asked Dante. "For I did not even know of what I was the bearer, and the Emperor merely made such inquiries as he would of the first comer. But pardon me, here are the health officers and the customs inspectors coming alongside." And the young man went to the gangway. As he departed, Danglars approached and said, "Well, it appears that he has given you satisfactory reasons for his landing at Porto Ferraio." "Yes, most satisfactory, my dear Danglars." "Well, so much the better," said the supercargo, "for it is not pleasant to think that a comrade has not done his duty." "Dante has done his," replied the owner, "and that is not saying much. It was Captain Leclerc who gave orders for this delay." "Talking of Captain Leclerc, has not Dante given you a letter from him?" "To me? No. Was there one?" "I believe that, besides the packet, Captain Leclerc confided a letter to his care." "Of what packet are you speaking, Danglars?" "Why, that which Dante left at Porto Ferraio." "How do you know he had a packet to leave at Porto Ferraio?" Danglars turned very red. "I was passing close to the door of the captain's cabin, which was half open, and I saw him give the packet and letter to Dante." "He did not speak to me of it," replied the shipowner. "But if there be any letter, he will give it to me." Danglars reflected for a moment. "Then, Monsieur Morel, I beg of you," said he, "not to say a word to Dante on the subject. I may have been mistaken." At this moment the young man returned. Danglars withdrew. "Well, my dear Dante, are you now free?" inquired the owner. "Yes, sir." "You have not been long detained." "No, I gave the custom house officers a copy of our bill of lading. And as to the other papers, they sent a man off with the pilot to whom I gave them." "Then you have nothing more to do here?" "No, everything is all right now." "Then you can come and dine with me." "I really must ask you to excuse me, Monsieur Morel. My first visit is due to my father, though I am not the less grateful for the honor you have done me." "Right, Dante, quite right. I always knew you were a good son." "And," inquired Dante with some hesitation, "do you know how my father is?" "Well, I believe, my dear Edmond, though I have not seen him lately." "Yes, he likes to keep himself shut up in his little room." "That proves, at least, that he was wanted for nothing during your absence.
Dante smiled. My father is proud, sir, and if he had not a meal left, I doubt if he would have asked anything from anyone, except from heaven.
Well then, after this first visit has been made, we shall count on you.
I must again excuse myself, Monsieur Morel, for after this first visit has been paid, I have another which I am most anxious to pay.
True, Dante. I forgot. There was at the Catalans someone who expects you no less impatiently than your father, the lovely Mercedes.
Dante blushed.
Aha, said the shipowner. I am not in the least surprised, for she has been to me 3 times, inquiring if there were any news of the fair one. Peste, Edmond, you have a very handsome mistress.
She is not my mistress, replied the young sailor gravely. She is my betrothed.
Sometimes one and the same thing, said Morel with a smile.
Not with us, sir, replied Dante.
Well, well, my dear Edmond, continued the owner, don't let me detain you. You have managed my affairs so well that I ought to allow you all the time you require for your own. Do you want any money?
No, sir, I have all my pay to take, nearly 3 months' wages.
You are a careful fellow, Edmond.
Say I have a poor father, sir.
Yes, yes, I know how good a son you are. So now hasten away to see your father. I have a son too, and I shall be very wroth with those who detained him from me after 3 months' voyage.
Then I have your leave, sir?
Yes, if you have nothing more to say to me.
Nothing.
Captain Leclerc did not, before he died, give you a letter from me?
He was unable to write, sir, but that reminds me that I must ask your leave of absence for some days.
To get married?
Yes, first, and then go to Paris.
Very good. Have what time you require, Dante. It will take quite 6 weeks to unload the cargo, and we cannot get you ready for sea until 3 months after that. Only be back in 3 months. For the fair one, added the owner, patting the young sailor on the back, cannot sail without her captain.
Without her captain? Cried Dante, his eyes sparkling with animation. Pray mind what you say, for you are touching on the most secret wishes of my heart. Is it really your intention to make me captain of the fair one?
If I were sole owner, we'd shake hands on it now, my dear Dante, and call it settled. But I have a partner, and you know the Italian proverb, chi ha compagno ha padrone. He who has a partner has a master. But the thing is at least half done, as you have 1 out of 2 votes. Rely on me to procure the other. I will do my best.
Ah, Monsieur Morel, exclaimed the young seaman, with tears in his eyes, and grasping the owner's hand. Monsieur Morel, I thank you in the name of my father and of Mercedes.
That's all right, Edmond. There's a providence that watches over the deserving. Go to your father. Go and see Mercedes, and afterwards come to me.
Shall I row you ashore?
No, thank you. I shall remain and look over the accounts with Danglars. Have you been satisfied with him this voyage?
That is according to the sense you attach to the question, sir. Do you mean, is he a good comrade? No, for I think he never liked me since the day when I was silly enough, after a little quarrel, we had to propose to him to stop for 10 minutes at the island of Monte Cristo to settle the dispute. A proposition which I was wrong to suggest, and he quite right to refuse. If you mean as responsible agent, when you ask me the question, I believe there is nothing to say against him, and that you will be content with the way in which he has performed his duty.
But tell me, Dante, if you had command of the fair one, should you be glad to see Danglars remain?
Captain or mate, Monsieur Morel, I shall always have the greatest respect for those who possess the owner's confidence." That's right, Dante. I see you are a thoroughly good fellow, and will detain you no longer. Go, for I see how impatient you are." "Then I have leave?" "Go, I tell you." "May I have the use of your skiff?" "Certainly." "Then, for the present, Monsieur Morel, farewell, and 1,000 thanks." "I hope soon to see you again, my dear Edmond. Good luck to you." The young sailor jumped into the skiff, and sat down in the stern sheets, with the order that he be put ashore at La Canebière. The two oarsmen bent to their work, and the little boat glided away as rapidly as possible in the midst of the 1,000 vessels which choke up the narrow way which leads between the two rows of ships from the mouth of the harbour to the Quai d'Orléans. The ship-owner, smiling, followed him with his eyes until he saw him spring out on the quay and disappear in the midst of the throng, which from 5 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night swarms in the famous street of La Canebière, a street of which the modern Phocéens are so proud that they say with all the gravity in the world, and with that accent which gives so much character to what is said, "If Paris had La Canebière, Paris would be a second Marseille." On turning round, the owner saw Danglars behind him, apparently awaiting orders, but in reality also watching the young sailor. But there was a great difference in the expression of the two men who thus followed the movements of Edmond Dantès. End of chapter 1. Chapter 2. Father and Son. We will leave Danglars struggling with the demon of hatred and endeavouring to insinuate in the ear of the ship-owner some evil suspicions against his comrade, and follow Dante, who, after having traversed La Canebière, took the Rue de Noailles and entered a small house on the left of the Allée de Meilhan, rapidly ascended 4 flights of a dark staircase, holding the baluster with one hand, while with the other he repressed the beatings of his heart, and paused before a half-open door, from which he could see the whole of a small room. This room was occupied by Dante's father. The news of the arrival of the fair one had not yet reached the old man, who, mounted on a chair, was amusing himself by training with trembling hand the nasturtiums and sprays of clematis that clambered over the trellis at his window. Suddenly he felt an arm thrown around his body, and a well-known voice behind him exclaimed, "Father, dear father!" The old man uttered a cry, and turned round. Then, seeing his son, he fell into his arms, pale and trembling. "What ails you, my dearest father? Are you ill?" inquired the young man, much alarmed.
"No, no, my dear Edmond. My boy, my son. No, but I did not expect you. And joy, the surprise of seeing you so suddenly. Oh, I feel as if I were going to die."
Come, cheer up, my dear father. It is I, really I. They say joy never hurts, and so I came to you without any warning. Come now, do smile, instead of looking at me so solemnly. Here I am, back again, and we are going to be happy."
Yes, my boy, so we will,
replied the old man.
"But how shall we be happy? Shall you never leave me again? Come, tell me all the good fortune that has befallen you."
"God forgive me," said the young man, "for rejoicing at happiness derived from the misery of others. But heaven knows I did not seek this good fortune. It has happened, and I really cannot pretend to lament it. The good Captain Leclerc is dead, father, and it is probable that with the aid of Monsieur Morel I shall have his place. Do you understand, father? Only imagine me a captain at 20, with 100 louis pay, and a share in the profits. Is this not more than a poor sailor like me could have hoped for?"
"Yes, my dear boy," replied the old man. "It is very fortunate."
"Well then, with the first money I touch, I mean you to have a small house, with a garden in which to plant clematis, nasturtium, and honeysuckle. But what ails you, father? Are you not well?"
"It is nothing, nothing. It will soon pass away."
And as he said so, the old man's strength failed him, and he fell backwards.
"Come, come," said the young man. "A glass of wine, father, will revive you. Where do you keep your wine?"
"No, no thanks. You need not look for it. I do not want it," said the old man.
"Yes, yes, father, tell me where it is."
And he opened 2 or 3 cupboards.
"It is no use," said the old man. "There is no wine."
"What, no wine?"
said Dante, turning pale and looking alternately at the hollow cheeks of the old man and the empty cupboards.
"What, no wine? Have you wanted money, father?"
"I want nothing now that I have you," said the old man.
"Yet," stammered Dante, wiping the perspiration from his brow,
"yet I gave you 200 francs when I left, 3 months ago."
"Yes, yes, Edmond, that is true, but you forgot at the time a little debt to our neighbor, Caderousse. He reminded me of it, telling me if I did not pay for you, he would be paid by Monsieur Morel, and so you see lest he might do you an injury."
"Well?"
"Why, I paid him."
"But," cried Dante, "it was 140 francs I owed Caderousse."
"Yes,"
stammered the old man.
"And you paid him out of the 200 francs I left you?"
The old man nodded.
"So that you have lived for 3 months on 60 francs?" muttered Edmond.
"You know how little I require," said the old man.
"Heaven pardon me,"
cried Edmond, falling on his knees before his father.
"What are you doing?"
"You have wounded me to the heart."
"Never mind it, for I see you once more," said the old man, "and now it's all over. Everything is all right again."
"Yes, I am here," said the young man, "with a promising future and a little money. Here, father, here," he said. "Take this, take it, and send for something immediately."
And he emptied his pockets on the table, the contents consisting of 12 gold pieces, 5 or 6 5-franc pieces, and some smaller coin. The countenance of old Dante brightened.
"Whom does this belong to?"
he inquired.
"To me, to you, to us. Take it. Buy some provisions. Be happy. And tomorrow we shall have more."
"Gently, gently,"
said the old man with a smile.
"And by your leave, I will use your purse moderately, for they would say, if they saw me buy too many things at a time, that I had been obliged to await your return in order to be able to purchase them."
"Do as you please. But first of all, pray have a servant, father. I would not have you left alone so long. I have some smuggled coffee and most capital tobacco in a small chest in the hold, which you shall have tomorrow. But hush, here comes somebody."
"It is Caderousse, who has heard of your arrival, and no doubt comes to congratulate you on your fortunate return."
"Ah, lips that say one thing, while the heart thinks another," murmured Edmond. "But never mind, he is a neighbor who has done us a service on a time, so he is welcome."
As Edmond paused, the black and bearded head of Caderousse appeared at the door. He was a man of 25 or 6, and held a piece of cloth which, being a tailor, he was about to make into a coat lining.
"What is it, you, Edmond, back again?"
said he with a broad Marseillaise accent, and a grin that displayed his ivory white teeth.
"Yes, yes, as you see, neighbor Caderousse, and ready to be agreeable to you in any and every way," replied Dante.
but ill concealing his coldness under his cloak of civility.
Thanks, but fortunately I do not want for anything, and it chances that at times there are others who have need of me.
Dante made a gesture.
I do not allude to you, my boy. No, I lent you money and you returned it. That's like good neighbors, and we are quits.
We are never quits with those who oblige us, was Dante's reply. For when we do not owe them money, we owe them gratitude.
What's the use of mentioning that? What is done is done. Let us talk of your happy return, my boy. I had gone on the quay to match a piece of mulberry cloth when I met friend Danglars. You at Marseille?
Yes, he says.
I thought you were at Smyrna.
I was, but now I am back again.
And where is the dear boy, our little Edmond? Why, with his father, no doubt, replied Danglars. And so I came, added Caderousse, so fast as I could, to have the pleasure of shaking hands with a friend.
Worthy Caderousse,
said the old man.
He is so much attached to us.
Yes, to be sure I am. I love and esteem you, because honest folks are so rare. But it seems you have come back rich, my boy, continued the tailor, looking askance at the handful of gold and silver which Dante had thrown on the table. The young man remarked the greedy glance which shone in the dark eyes of his neighbour.
"Eh,"
he said negligently, "this money is not mine. I was expressing to my father my fears that he had wanted many things in my absence, and to convince me, he emptied his purse on the table. Come, father," added Dante, "put this money back in your box, unless neighbor Caderousse wants anything, and in that case it is at his service." "No, my boy, no," said Caderousse. "I am not in any want. Thank God, my living is suited to my means. Keep your money. Keep it, I say. One never has too much. But at the same time, my boy, I am as much obliged by your offer as if I took advantage of it." "It was offered with good will," said Dante. "No doubt, my boy, no doubt. Well, you stand well with Monsieur Morrel, I hear. Are you insinuating dog you?" "Monsieur Morrel has always been exceedingly kind to me," replied Dante. "Then you were wrong to refuse to dine with him."
"What? Did you refuse to dine with him?" said old Dante. "And did he invite you to dine?"
"Yes, my father," replied Edmond, smiling at his father's astonishment at the excessive honour paid to his son.
"And why did you refuse, my son?"
inquired the old man. "That I might sooner see you again, my dear father," replied the young man. "I was most anxious to see you." "But it must have vexed Monsieur Morrel good, worthy man," said Caderousse. "And when you are looking forward to be captain, it was wrong to annoy the owner." "But I explained to him the cause of my refusal," replied Dante, "and I hope he fully understood it." "Yes, but to be captain once must do a little flattery to one's patrons." "I hope to be captain without that," said Dante. "So much the better, so much the better. Nothing will give greater pleasure to all your old friends, and I know one down there behind the San Nicolas citadel who will not be sorry to hear it."
"Mercedes?"
said the old man. "Yes, my dear father. And with your permission, now I have seen you, and know you are well, and have all you require, I will ask your consent to go and pay a visit to the Catalans."
"Go, my dear boy," said the old Dante, "and heaven bless you in your wife, as it has blessed me in my son."
"His wife?" said Caderousse. "Why, how fast you go on, Father Dante! She is not his wife yet, as it seems to me." "So, but according to all probability, she soon will be," replied Edmond. Yes, said Caderousse, "but you are right to return as soon as possible, my boy." "And why?" "Because Mercedes is a very fine girl, and fine girls never lack followers. She particularly has them by dozens." "Really?
answered Edmond with a smile which had in it traces of slight uneasiness.
"Ah, yes," continued Caderousse, "and capital offers, too. But you know, you will be captain, and who could refuse you then?"
"Meaning to say," replied Dantès with a smile which but ill concealed his trouble, "that if I were not a captain?"
"Hey!"
said Caderousse, shaking his head.
"Come, come,"
said the sailor, "I have a better opinion than you of women in general, and of Mercédès in particular. And I am certain that, captain or not, she will remain ever faithful to me."
"So much the better, so much the better," said Caderousse. "When one is going to be married, there's nothing like implicit confidence. But never mind that, my boy. Go and announce your arrival, and let her know all your hopes and prospects."
"I will go directly," was Edmond's reply, and embracing his father, and nodding to Caderousse, he left the apartment. Caderousse lingered for a moment, then taking leave of old Dantès, he went downstairs to rejoin Danglars, who awaited him at the corner of the Rue Senac.
"Well,"
said Danglars,
"did you see him?"
"I have just left him," answered Caderousse.
"Did he allude to his hope of being captain?"
"He spoke of it as a thing already decided."
"Indeed," said Danglars. "He is in too much hurry, it appears to me."
"Why? It seems M. Morrel has promised him the thing."
"So that he is quite elated about it?"
"Why, yes. He is actually insolent over the matter, has already offered me his patronage as if he were a grand personage, and offered me a loan of money, as though he were a banker."
"Which you refused?"
"Most assuredly, although I might easily have accepted it, for it was I who put into his hands the first silver he ever earned. But now M. Dantès has no longer any occasion for assistance. He is about to become a captain."
"Pooh!" said Danglars. "He is not one yet."
"Ma foi! It will be as well if he is not," answered Caderousse, "for if he should be, there will be really no speaking to him."
"If we choose," replied Danglars, "he will remain what he is, and perhaps become even less than he is."
"What do you mean?" "Nothing. I was speaking to myself. And is he still in love with the Catalan?"
"Over head and ears. But unless I am much mistaken, there will be a storm in that quarter."
"Explain yourself."
"Why should I?" "It is more important than you think, perhaps. You do not like Dantès?" "I never like upstarts."
"Then tell me all you know about the Catalan."
"I know nothing for certain. Only I have seen things which induce me to believe, as I told you, that the future captain will find some annoyance in the vicinity of the vieille infirmière."
"What have you seen?
"Come, tell me." "Well, every time I see Mercédès come into the city, she has been accompanied by a tall, strapping, black-eyed Catalan, with a red complexion, brown skin, and fierce air, whom she calls cousin."
"Really? And you think this cousin pays her attentions?"
"I only suppose so. What else can a strapping chap of 21 mean, with a fine wench of 17?
"And you say that Dantès has gone to the Catalans?"
"He went before I came down."
"Let us go the same way.
We will stop at La Réserve, and we can drink a glass of La Malgue, whilst we wait for news." "Come along," said Caderousse, "but you pay the score."
"Of course," replied Danglars, and going quickly to the designated place, they called for a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Père Pamphile had seen Dantès pass not 10 minutes before, and assured that he was at the Catalans, they sat down under the budding foliage of the planes and sycamores, in the branches of which the birds were singing their welcome to one of the first days of spring. End of chapter 2.